Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guests, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight we are going to be sharing an absolutely wonderful New Age children's book. It's truly about for a little bit older child, maybe about 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10. It's about learning from a child's book, bringing education into the story, and engaging in the creative flow of a child. What are the questions they are asking? What is this world around us? How can we engage a child in the world around us to be able to see things like the sun, the moon, the stars? If even sometimes the parents are like, I don't know, the moon's up there, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And even they haven't even explored it. So what we really love to do is to have some New Age children's books in the bank, so to speak, that really bring the reader and the child into the same moment in time where they can learn, explore, ask questions, and perhaps even sometimes say, I really never even thought about that. And isn't that so interesting? It's not about reading a passive story to your child about the princess or the frog or whatever. While those may delight the child, these books are really the New Age children's books. It's about bringing a child's interest in so that maybe they will explore it further in their life. Have you ever read a book to a child and they say, yes, I used to read those books, and now look at me. I'm a doctor. I'm an archaeologist. I'm someone who likes to clean up the streets. I'm someone who likes to cook food, or perhaps I just like to be able to open up a store where someone can come and get free food. Those are the books we like to focus in on this show today. Today, my guest is Kristine Keck. Her book is The Moon Thief. And it truly is about being able to say, that white thing up in the sky that comes up in the night? When so many kids are already gone to bed, they don't even notice the moon. When do we notice the moon? When we're young, old, or when something comes up on social media that says, hey, go out and see it? It's a great time to have someone with us today to be able to say, how can we explore this with our children? Kristine, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Dr. Jeanette. It's a pleasure to be here. That was a beautiful introduction.
So, Kristine, I'm so glad, because I think that, we always think about that. The kids go to bed really early, usually, before the moon even comes up, don't you think? And
sure.
we say, is it a passive thing in the sky? I mean, don't you think that maybe we really haven't noticed it unless something on social media told us to go outside and look at it?
Sadly, yes.
I think it's really great that you've written this book, The Moon Thief, because I think I always say to the people that it's whoever is reading the book, read the book before you read it to a child.
Yeah,
sit with it. Feel it. Own it. What does it bring up for you? And be able to say, this is really doing what for me? How can I engage the child I'm reading it to? Don't you think?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. My daughter loves to read the book, and she reads it over and over. And now she's so well practiced at it that it's pulled some strings for her. So she loves to read it to her class, and she reads it to the librarian at school and to the neighboring classes. And it's really beautiful to hear her read it.
And also, too, I think the readers, we always say it's usually a parent or a caregiver or a babysitter. Yeah. But really what I find is that these books, these New Age children's books, is really about grandparents or the elderly. I mean, this book would be absolutely wonderful in an assisted living home, in a perhaps mental health kind of facility, or perhaps those who are having issues with their memory. it will bring up something in their mind where they can have a simple story, engage with it for a moment, be able to touch and feel what you've written on the pages, and also with all your pictures. And it's just a moment in time. Don't you think it's simpler time?
I do. What a beautiful idea. I've never even considered that. But, talking to, some of the, mentally ill or the elderly, my daughter, she loves to volunteer at places like that. So that might be a really fun idea.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the greatest tools you can say, especially your book, The Moon Thief, because in the beginning it's a story about a child. We don't want to give away the whole story, but we say, where's the moon going? Because you look up tonight, it looks one way. You look up tomorrow, it's another way. When you look at the Earth you're on, you say the Earth is the same. Why is the moon any different? So isn't that a perfect question to ask? Don't you think?
Yeah. Yes. That was the whole idea of it. Well, what's funny is I actually thought of the title first. I was driving down the street one day, and I said, I'm going to write a book called The Moon Thief. And I had no idea what it was going to be about. And I thought about it, and it just came to me. And when it came to me, I literally couldn't stop writing. The book itself was finished, really within a couple days. And then after that, it was a perfection process that took years.
What I really loved about it is that you really did not use, I would call them simplistic words, an early childhood kind of reading. It's for a little bit older. What's really great about that, though, is that if you look at now in the year 2022, we're not even speaking to our children as I did, maybe, or my grandparents did to us, with a very babyish kind of words. We're using intellectual words right off the bat. It's sort of, that whole comment, well, they don't really understand that word, you don't need to say it. And the answer is, say the words. And then they can look it up and they can figure it out, but they'll be in their knowing already. Instead of altering a childhood's, mind education of vocabulary to a more advanced, you're really coming right out at the bat and saying, hey, these are the words. I know you got it.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I love that you say that, because I have never, talked down to my children, so to speak. I've always used big words because it encouraged them to ask, what does that word mean? What does that word mean? And often when you use a word in context, the picture shows you what the word means. And so, you're really growing children to be more intellectual that way. And that's exactly what my thoughts were when I wrote the book, because I was a bit concerned that there were a couple words I didn't think they would know what they mean, but they don't always have to know what every word means to tell a story. But it does invoke those questions of what is that word? What is that word?
Right, because truly you can look at it back at another time as a child grows, and then they can start reading it and looking up the words, or they can start speaking the words, or they can say, I already understand that. And it's just so different. Don't you think?
And don't we all do that? We'll be, I'll be reading books, and there'll be words I don't know, and I will immediately, sometimes I would, before, you had e-readers where you could push on the word and it would give you the definition, I would have a dictionary next to me. And I learned a lot of my vocabulary through reading that way.
Yeah. And that's definitely, I grew up reading things, and, if we look back at the generations, did our parents or grandparents even finish high school? 95% of us didn't have grandparents and parents who did. And then I was of the generation where you're going to go to college. You'll be the first one to carry the, whatever. And I think when we look at it, when I had my kids, I was still in college, with all the degrees or whatever, and my kids were growing up, and I would come home and talk about open heart surgery at dinner, and the kids would be, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You know what I mean?
That was wonderful.
And now they're doctors, or now they're in the mental health and crisis stuff. So we've kind of used our children to open them up much earlier to these experiences. Don't you think that that's the goal of of teaching children versus just saying, well, this is the way it used to be?
Absolutely. And I think that is, what is creating these futures for these kids, which is why I love using imagination and creative play to also provoke that critical thinking process at an early age. I think that imagination plays a huge role in child development. And, it inspires creative thinking and thinking outside of the box and ingenuity, So, that's kind of, my philosophy behind writing these kinds of books.
I absolutely loved it because, when you think about the moon, it's so ever-changing and no one ever has an answer. There's no social media page for it, If you ask a teacher, she'll kind of say, I don't know, or maybe we'll have to look it up, and you kind of get a blasé answer. But what I loved about it in the back of the book is that you actually put education here. You're saying, this is the moon cycle. This is how it works. This is how it comes and it goes, and you talk about astronomy and observation and everything, and it's, using those words can really open up a child to say what is out there versus just what is in your immediate presence, right?
Sure. Yes, that's what I want to do, is inspire these kids to wonder. Curiosity is what fosters ingenuity, and the kids that grow into to be engineers and doctors and astronauts and caregivers, I think it's really exciting. And thank you for pointing out the educational piece. That was kind of like my darling of the book. While I do want to influence people's imaginations, I also want to use the opportunity. Now we have their juices flowing and their curiosity blossoming. So it's a perfect opportunity to really teach, for it to be impactful and something that they'll remember.
Yeah, because you also have an activity in the back of the book. What children's book has activities? None of them, But you're actually saying, okay, let's do this. Let's go out and look. And it says a moon observation chart. Start date and an end date, and you write things down. And what's really good about children's books, you have a lot of white space in your book also. I always say when you're reading a book to a child and they say something, write it down on that page, initial it, and date it. Because Because then this book becomes an actual kind of diary. It becomes something, I thought of that, and that day, isn't it really cool? Or my grandmother was reading it, she told me about this moon, and we wrote it on the page. Or maybe I saw a crazy moon the other day, and this is what it looked like. And, even have pages that have white space, and it's like, draw the moon. What does it look like to you today? Isn't that exciting?
I love that. And, and if people are doing that and grandparents and parents are inspiring children to do that, and this book becomes that, then that means it really is a success to me. That is all that I would need from this book.
Yeah, because really, if you look at it, all the time, you turn around and, you look at books that are handed down in the family, and they're just books. But if that's how you leave legacies, that's how you leave a life story. That's how you say, I was here before, I've looked at children's books before, and if you look at it, some things are gone. Like, let's say if we were writing a book about a telephone. Hey, there's no such things as telephones before, in the old ones anymore, you know what I mean? But you could say, this is how we used to talk and share. So it kind of constructs a picture idea. It's almost like a pictogram of your life. Do you think?
I do. And to think, that I could be leaving a legacy through inspiring children and getting them to be curious and wonder. That really is leaving a legacy for me. And I do love to think that it could be passed down as a tool and as a memory and as a way to teach our kids.
Yeah. I absolutely loved it, Kristine, because I think that also, too, the ideas of the stories and the pictures aren't, they're realistic, they are simple, and they are very clean, I call it. It's not over-empowering to where the child can't use an imagination to think about the picture and the words. So sometimes, you see these illustrations where they are so graphic that you've already created the story in the child's mind, and yours is, how can it be created in the child's mind, yes?
Sure. I love that you said that, because that really was my mission when I set out to actually get this thing to come to fruition and get it published. I did want something a bit left to the imagination. It's honestly why I didn't name the boy in the story.
Mm-hmm.
I chose, that was on purpose, to leave him nameless, because you immediately avoid excluding any background or demographics.
Right.
Or, often if you know someone with the name Alex, you immediately have that association with that character. And I think that sort of inhibits your ability to identify with the boy or become the boy or make the boy whoever you want.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely on purpose. And the same thing goes with the paintings. That's why I chose a painter instead of an illustrator.
Right.
She hand-painted every single piece and did high-res photos of it. And it really is to, make it sort of whimsical and imaginative. And I think it ended up coming through really well.
I love what you shared about dancing in the shadows, because I can distinctly remember I was a very open child. I used to see ghosts and spirits and angels and things in, my lifetime. And now if we look at it, there's a lot of kids right now, even more so, who are being open. They are aware. They have a lot of spiritual talents and abilities, and they are coming in already open, and they see that. And I think if we realize this, we can say the nighttime isn't scary. What you see, what you know, what's out there, that's an open venue to be able to explore the spirituality also of the child. Because the moon is very esoteric and very cosmic. And then if a child is having abilities and seeing and sensing and knowing something in the darkness, they can share that. But also, too, it does not give the child that to be scared of the dark. You're saying we can dance in the dark, so you're giving a positive affirmation to the darkness, yes?
Yes, and the shadows part, I distinctly remember wondering where it is the shadows went at nighttime. How come I only see shadows during the day? So it was also another opportunity to get these kids curious and to get them curious and wondering about the dark instead of being afraid of the dark. That it is, a moonbeam ballet, as I say in the book. I don't want them to be afraid of it. I want them to be curious of it.
Yeah. I think that it's about being able to say, let's go out and what can we see? And a lot of times, there's a lot of elders who have been pretty much quieted down and said, I had a lot of experiences when I was younger. I just didn't share them because that was part of history. You weren't allowed to do that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s because, there was places that you would go and you would be there forever and it wouldn't be a good place to be. But so now a lot of elders are wakening up. That's why I had said it before about memory care, assisted living. The elders can start sharing their, too, experiences of the moon. I remember the moon as this. I remember how I felt when the moon used to make its shift. I remember maybe spirits in the night. I remember these things, and they can start opening up. So in essence, a child's book isn't your book actually opening up generations of people?
I would love to think so. I think it's a beautiful thought. It's honestly not something I had thought of. But what a beautiful idea or concept that would be if it could invoke something like that in anybody, because the moon is kind of sort of a passive thing. I think a lot of people do sort of forget to stop and take notice of something that's so majestic. So I love that idea. I
think that it's so cool because, on this show we talk so much about spirituality and soul and spirit and just there's so much more to us than just this human being that kind of trudges along in the daytime, So I think that if a child is very open, it's really how can we dance with their imagination and really validate it. If we look at it, people are really looking for validation. Otherwise, we just end up with shame, guilt, and regrets, and we don't want to do that to kids, right?
No, we sure don't. No, I agree. Yeah, my daughter is one of the most imaginative people I've ever met in my life, and it's really interesting because I wrote this book when she was born. I had no idea that she would actually end up growing into being the boy in the book.
Very interesting. I think also, too, Kristine, is that the idea is, let's talk about the moon for a second. I even saw something on social media the other day, and it said, that there's this, something's headed for the moon, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. Maybe we also think about it as we always feel that the moon will be there forever and ever and a million years. But, hey, we always thought that the phone was, too. Or I don't know about you, but I grew up in the time when they would say, don't use too much electricity. Make sure you shut off all the lights and everything. And now you've got cars peeing away electricity. You've got 100, million plugs in your house, always, going crazy all the time. And now electricity has a different form. So I think the idea is, can we appreciate the world and the earth for where they are today and really form that connection, right?
Well, yeah, and it's funny that you say that. I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying is, back then we couldn't imagine that we would have reached the progress that we have. But it was the people who did imagine it that made it happen. If they weren't imagining, if they weren't wondering, they wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have what we have today, which is exactly why you want to invoke that and facilitate that from a very young age. Those really are the creators of tomorrow.
Yeah, let's talk about children who sometimes say, well, I really don't understand that. I don't know what that means. How do you think we can possibly answer that? I know for myself, I'll say, oh, that's so exciting. So tell me how you see it. What do you feel?
Absolutely.
What's the story about? Because it's not about me telling you my story for you to become your dogma. It's about sharing what I see with my, wonder and imagination, and I want to know what you see with your wonder and imagination, right?
Yes, me too. That is exactly my method. I love that you said that because that's literally the first thing I ask my daughter when she asks me how anything works. I'm actually curious. How do you think it works? I'm also always looking for new book ideas, and she is a huge source of them. So that is, I love hearing, how she thinks it works, and it's fascinating to me, and it's a wonderful opportunity, even just to bond with children,
Yeah, I think the idea that sometimes we say a machine was supposed to work a certain way, and you and I know it always did because it did it for eons. But, sometimes you say to the child, hey, can you, let's look at this. Let's here's something to play with. And you hand it to them, and they would say, well, how does it work? And I'll say, darn, I don't know. Can you tell me how it works? And let them figure out the process, I do that with my patients with herbs and stuff all the time. They'll say, you just gave me this herb. What's it going to do? What's it supposed to do? What's it going to fix? And they'll say, I have no clue. Why don't you let me know next week how you feel? And they go,
I
what?
love that. Then you leave the power of suggestion there. Yeah, get real results. Yeah.
Because I think you get too stuck in the idea of, is it right or wrong, left or right, or, the toy doesn't work anymore because it doesn't do what you said, when in essence, maybe the child could have fixed it. Maybe the child found another use for it. Maybe the child said, wow, this is really interesting. Perhaps we could try it for a different use. Whoa, how would that be,
Well, I think it's too often that children aren't really forced to take advantage of an opportunity like that. They throw, they go through a toy, it breaks, they throw it away, and they go on to the next one, or they just, go to their smartphone or their parents' phone. So I think it's important, that we, reuse and my daughter, if something breaks, she could find 15 different ways from Sunday to use it another way. I think it's really important that we keep those things going. Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. I think, Kristine, there's times that we are in, we say, isn't it really cool and wouldn't it be really fun? And that's what your book really brought out today, yes?
Thank you. I love that you said that. Thank you, yeah.
And maybe, when the times change, you say, hey, let's go look at the moon. I know for my grandkids, I was going to get them a telescope, but they're only like 3 and 4. And I said, well, how about this instead? So I got them binoculars. And they walked around with the binoculars everywhere because I wanted them to see something different, something outside of the space and time. And I said to my daughter, I said, now don't wait, because in 2 years they're getting the telescope too, So they can look at something in a different way, and I think that's what we want to be able to encourage, don't you think?
I do, well, and it also encourages them just to get outside. I mean, getting outside is such an important part of child development, and it scares me that a lot of kids don't get out enough, you know. But, yeah, I remember my favorite toy when I was around 10 was actually the microscope. I would go out and find bugs and anything, and put it between two pieces of glass and look at it. And, those are the kind of things we don't really think about giving our kids anymore.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely an interesting way to be able to see the world around us. So I think your book is really, it's a really great start.
Well, thank you so much.
Could you share, Kristine, how the listeners can find out more information about your work? That would be wonderful.
Sure. So my website, you can find my book and also a link to my blogs. And my website's KristineKeck.com, KristineKeck.com. And I also have a blog there, completely unrelated, but it's about raising children with ADHD. It's called ADHD, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And that's at wigglemefidgets.com. And you can find my book anywhere on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any online platform, and many local bookstores as well.
Well, it was such a pleasure to have you with us here today, Kristine, and I hope also, too, that even if you don't have children, that you're able to pick up the book and be able to say, this is really cool. I learned something today. I would like to share something with other people around me. We share it with elders. We share it with assisted living. We share it with those who would say, oh, I don't think that that's important. So you say, why not? Let's just go on an adventure. And then you're creating a new experience for yourself, your children, the people, hey, but even your coworkers, You say, I got this cool book, but I needed to look at it first before I gave it to my child, So I think that's what we really want to be able to encourage, don't you think?
I do. Thank you so much for all the kind words that you've said and for reading it and for your support and for having me on your show, Dr. Jeanette.
So happy to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to find out more information about Kristine Keck, again, the book is The Moon Thief. Please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to go directly to her website for more information about the book and her work, and definitely about finding about special needs for children. It truly is about being able to say that everybody is in a different place in their life. Reach out, enjoy the adventure and the experience for today. What can a child teach you? What can you teach a child? How can we connect with elders who seem to be drifting off? Everyone is in a different place in this world. The challenges are great. The human experience, the spiritual journey, it's truly all out there. And we say, well, let's go out and dance in the day, or perhaps, as Kristine says, dance in the shadows. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette Gallagher. Until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit drjeanettegallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.